At my sister's wedding, my mom stood tall, her champagne glass catching the light like it was rehearsed. She smiled wide and said, "To the daughter who truly deserves everything." The room erupted in applause. Laughter. Toasts. Even the damn DJ clapped. My sister. She smirked at me from across the dance floor. Not kindly. Like she'd finally won. I wasn't even sitting at the family table. They had me tucked in the back like a pity guest, right by the kitchen door where waiters brushed past me with empty plates and pitying eyes. But I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I simply stood up. My heels were shaking, not from nerves but from the years I let them step on me. And I said clear as day, "You'll remember this day, just not for the reason you think." A few heads turned. Most dismissed it. They thought I was just bitter. Lonely. Unremarkable. But 1 hour later, as the first dance ended, as the cake was being wheeled out and as the cameras zoomed in on smiles no one really meant, their phones lit up. All of them buzzing. Flashing. Pink. Pink. And slowly, every fake smile in that golden ballroom cracked. Because what I'd been planning for 6 months had just launched. And it was beautiful. My name is Rachel Monroe. And from wherever you're watching this, tell me in the comments, stay with me. Have you ever watched the people you love turn you invisible, like you were only useful when they needed you? I was the quiet one, the helper, the second option, until I became the storm. And the story I'm about to tell you, it didn't just ruin a wedding. It unraveled a legacy built on lies. One they thought would never catch up to them. But the truth? It always shows up. Even if it wears heels and walks in late. They never thought I'd come back home, let alone walk into that wedding looking like power wrapped in velvet. But here's what they didn't know. I didn't return for the wedding. I came for the reckoning. 6 months earlier, I was living quietly in Denver, working a 9-to-5 at a nonprofit, scraping by while my family sent me the occasional Christmas card, usually late sometimes and signed. I never asked them for anything. They never offered. But then my little sister Emily, the princess of the family, the one who deserved everything, called me. She didn't even say hi. Just, "Mom wants you to help plan my wedding. You're good at spreadsheets, right?" That's what I was to them. The spreadsheet. The errand girl. The sister who knew how to stay out of the way. I said yes. Of course, I said yes. Because some part of me still believed if I showed up, if I made myself useful enough, maybe they'd see me again. Maybe I'd get a seat at the table. So I spent months building her budget, coordinating the florist, booking the venue. They didn't even put my name on the program. Not once did Mom say thank you. Not once did Emily check in. Then 2 weeks before the wedding, I found out from a caterer's invoice. They accidentally forwarded that my parents had gifted Emily $75,000 for the event. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen in my studio apartment, working overtime and skipping dentist visits. I didn't say a word. I just smiled and sent over the final seating chart where I'd been placed with the wedding photographer's assistant and someone's second cousin twice removed. That night I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "You will not be invisible at this wedding. You will not be disposable." And that's when the idea started forming. Not revenge, not at first. It was something colder, something cleaner, a truth bomb with a timer. They didn't know I had everything. The receipts, the secrets, and a little USB drive with their dirty laundry zipped up and ready. If they wanted a perfect wedding, fine. But I'd give them something unforgettable. Because sometimes the sister they thought was boring is the one who knows where everybody is buried. 3 weeks before the wedding, I booked a one-way ticket home. Not round trip. Because I knew once I did what I had to do, I wouldn't be welcome again. When I landed, no one picked me up. Not Emily. Not Mom. Dad didn't even text. So I Ubered to the house I grew up in. The one with the white porch and blue shutters that had once felt like a heart, now cold and remodeled in granite and silence. Emily barely looked up from her phone when I walked in. Just muttered, "Guest rooms upstairs. Try not to touch anything." I wanted to laugh. She used to follow me around with her thumb in her mouth. Now she treated me like a nuisance in heels. But I wasn't here for comfort. I was here to finish what I started. I spent the days pretending. Double-checking vendors, finalizing the table placements, pretending I didn't notice when my name wasn't listed anywhere on the welcome board. But at night when they were asleep I was busy. I set up a ghost Dropbox account. I uploaded screenshots, emails, photos, all organized in clean little folders. Like/mommy. Yep. That women's fundraiser Mom posted about on Facebook. The money never reached the shelter. I tracked it. /dad under for competent for embezzlement /dad had reallocated client investments for personal expenses. Country club dues a secret Vegas trip. I had the financial records. /Emily under for fig degree /she didn't graduate from NYU. He partied in Brooklyn and bought a diploma online. I had the email confirmation and Venmo payment. Truth sat heavy on my laptop. All of it waiting, but I wasn't going to dump it out of spite. I needed timing. Precision. That's when I created the scheduled email. Subject line, Monroe Family Memories. Delivery time, 8:45 p.m. on the wedding night. Attachments. Everything. Not anonymous. No. I wanted them to know it was me. I signed it with love from the daughter you forgot you raised. Then I bought a burgundy gown, sharp, elegant like a warning. When the wedding day came I stood in front of the mirror and whispered, "Smile for the camera, Rachel, it's going to be a picture-perfect disaster." Because the prettiest lies always fall the hardest. The ceremony was cruel in its perfection. Sun-drenched vows, white roses, and a string quartet playing something classical and forgettable. Emily looked like a Pinterest board brought to life. And I was the ghost in the back row. Not in a pew reserved for family. No, that was full. Even distant cousins I hadn't seen since childhood were seated before me. When Mom walked past me on the way to her front row seat, she didn't even glance sideways. Not once. She just whispered to the woman beside her, "Can't believe she actually showed up." It stung. But only for a moment. Because I wasn't here for their approval. I was here for the fall. The reception was where the cracks began. The speeches were endless. Best man. Maid of honor. Dad choking up as he called Emily his golden girl. And then Mom. She stood at the center of the ballroom, champagne raised high, smile wide enough to split skin. To my daughter, the one who deserves everything, who's always made us proud. The applause was thunderous. And I felt not rage. Not even sadness. Just clarity. That was the moment I stood up. My voice didn't shake. My spine didn't fold. You'll remember this day, just not for the reason you think. A few heads turned. Laughter flickered then stalled. Emily rolled her eyes like I was some drama-addicted sideshow. I sat back down and waited. 8:43 p.m., they served the cake. 8:44 p.m., flash bulbs popped. Dad made a joke to the DJ. 8:45 p.m., phones lit up. Then the entire front table, bathed in LED screens and frozen expressions. Emily blinked down at her phone. Her jaw slackened. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad turned ghost white. And then it happened. The whispers. The turned heads. The gasps. It was spreading like fire through lace. The guests who once clapped for Emily were now scrolling, reading, rereading. Because I had sent it not just to family but to vendors, clients, church friends, donors. The truth didn't need a microphone. It had email receipts and PDF attachments. They looked up at me like I was a stranger, but I just smiled because sometimes the most beautiful revenge is telling the truth when they least expect it. The room cracked. You could hear the fractures. Silverware clinking out of sync, music dimming mid-beat, polite laughter replaced by silence sharp enough to cut fondant. Emily's hands trembled as she gripped her phone. What the actual? Her voice pierced the air like shattered crystal. Mom stood frozen champagne flute midair, her face a mask of collapsing pride. Dad leaned over to her whispering furiously, his jaw locked in panic. I watched it all from the edge of the dance floor. A calm center in a hurricane of unraveling lies. Aunt Carla was the first to confront her. "Mary, what is this? Is this true? About the donations? About the shelter money? Mom stammered. That's ridiculous. Probably fake. Someone must have hacked. But the screenshots were there. Bank statements, emails, photos of her sipping wine in Napa the weekend she claimed to be hosting a women's charity gala. No one had hacked anything. They were just finally seeing her without the pretty filter. Then came Dad's turn. One of his firm's board members was at the wedding. Mr. Langston, bald with a deep southern drawl and an expression like stone. He pulled Dad aside, waving the email on his phone. Client funds, Ron. Personal travel. If even a quarter of this is true, you're cooked. I sipped my water like it was champagne. Watched the king and queen of my childhood queendom scramble to keep the castle from burning. But the real masterpiece. Emily. She stormed toward me, heels stabbing into the polished floor. You did this. You vile little brat. You're just jealous. Always have been. I smiled. Jealous? Of a fake degree. A life built on lies. You married a man who thinks you went to NYU. What happens when he finds out you failed out of community college and forged your transcripts? Her lips parted. No words came. And right on cue, her new husband, Andrew, walked up behind her, phone in hand, face pale. Emily, is this true? She didn't answer. She turned and vomited right on her own wedding dress. Gasps rippled. Cameras turned off. Whispers surged. It was the most honest moment of the entire evening. And in the middle of it all, I stood there steady and warm in my burgundy gown, finally feeling full. Because revenge doesn't always come in fire. Sometimes it arrives in quiet exposure. Layer by layer, secret by secret. Until nothing is left but truth, raw and cold. They tried to salvage the night. The DJ stuttered through a love song. The cake cutting was postponed. Mom whispered frantically to the planner, who nodded and then vanished, probably to hide in the restroom and cry. But the damage was already viral. Phones stayed glued to palms. Conversations were no longer about the bride and groom. They were about fraud, forgery, fake degrees, and the Monroe family secrets that had just detonated like confetti in a hurricane. Emily disappeared upstairs. Andrew followed, looking like a man who had just proposed to a resume. And I walked out to the garden. Breathed in the night air. Let the string lights above me flicker like stars pretending to be permanent. A few guests followed me out quietly, respectfully. One of Dad's former business partners gave me a nod. You did what had to be done, Rachel. Don't let them twist it. I didn't answer. Just smiled politely. Because the truth is, I wasn't proud of it. It didn't feel like triumph. Not yet. It felt like standing over the wreckage of a home I once prayed they'd let me back into. But the lock had rusted and I'd stopped asking for a key. Inside, someone screamed. A real raw animal scream. Emily. Her voice cracked like bone. Maybe Andrew had read the email labeled nymphotuscanfirm.pdf. Maybe he'd called her what she was. A liar with a Pinterest wedding and a counterfeit crown. The door slammed. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Mom rushed after her. Sweetheart. We can fix this. We'll spin it, we always do. But Emily wasn't listening. She grabbed the hem of her dress and stormed outside. And when she saw me standing in the garden like the last page of a book she tried to burn, she lunged. You ruined my life. I didn't flinch. I didn't ruin anything, Emily. I just stopped protecting the lies you built it on. She slapped me. It didn't hurt. But the silence that followed did. Because everyone heard it. And no one defended her. Not even Mom. Especially not Mom. She just stood there, face pale, mascara smudged, realizing that her favorite daughter wasn't salvageable anymore. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not pitted. Not compared. Just real. Because when truth tears a family apart, it also shows you who never truly held it together. The aftermath was surgical. Andrew annulled the marriage within a week. No honeymoon. No gifts returned. Just a lawyer's letter in silence. Emily tried to spin it, said I hacked her email, forged the documents, manipulated the truth. But it was too late. The world had receipts, and even liars know when the room stops buying. Mom called once. Just once. I let it ring. Because I knew what it was. Not an apology but damage control. Her voice would have sounded like wine over ice. Sweet. Measured. But I didn't need it. Not anymore. Dad lost 2 major clients. The charity board removed Mom in a closed-door vote. And the shelter, the one she used as a prop for social clout, is now under independent review. Funny how quickly your legacy dries up when the checks stop cashing. As for me, I didn't vanish. I started writing. Every night I lit a candle, sat by my tiny window, typed my story, not for revenge, but for release. The betrayal, the gaslighting, the years of invisibility wrapped in passive-aggressive bows. People read it. They shared it. Thousands of women, strangers, emailed me. I thought I was the only one. My mother did the same. You gave me language for a wound I couldn't name. And that's when I realized something vital. The revenge wasn't the public collapse. It was the quiet rebuilding. The refusal to stay silent. The rejection of shame. Emily's smirk is gone from her social media. Her wedding photos deleted. Her account now private, her followers cut in half. But mine. It's growing. Not with fame, but with freedom. And Mom. She stopped showing up to luncheons. The last photo I saw of her, she looked tired. Not in a way sleep fixes, in a way that truth wears into your bones. She still hasn't said sorry, but that's okay. But as I stopped waiting for permission to heal, some scars aren't meant to be hidden. They're meant to be seen. So others know what survival really looks like. 2 months later, I returned to the same venue. Not for a wedding. For a fundraiser. The shelter Mom once exploited was now under new leadership. Real, transparent and aching to rebuild. They invited me to speak. I almost declined. Not out of fear. But because some ghosts don't deserve second performances. But I went. And I stood beneath the same string lights that once flickered above a lie. Now they lit up a truth no one could silence. I didn't read from a script. I just spoke. My name is Rachel Monroe, and I spent most of my life believing love had to be earned through silence, obedience, and shrinking myself to fit at someone else's table. I paused. The room was still. But love that demands your invisibility is not love. It's control. And survival is not betrayal, it's bravery. They stood. They clapped. Not for drama, but for the courage it takes to break a cycle when everyone calls it tradition. Afterward I stepped outside. Same air. Same garden. But it felt different now. Like it belonged to me. That's when I saw her. Emily, across the street in a car watching. Maybe curious, maybe ashamed. She didn't get out, didn't wave, didn't yell, and I didn't go to her. As I finally understood, closure doesn't always need confrontation. Sometimes it's just a door you no longer knock on. My life is quiet now, but it's mine. I eat dinner without holding my breath. I celebrate without shrinking. And when I walk into a room, I don't wait for permission to be there. They tried to raise a glass to the daughter who deserved everything. Turns out they were toasting the wrong girl because I didn't need applause. I needed freedom, and I earned it one shattered smile at a time. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel.